Data Hub. And at later stage, if time allows, we will have more elaboration on that as well. And of course, this is in line with GCM objective number 1, which again highlights the importance of data. So finally, Madam Chair, the development of the the National Action Plan GCM involves broad participation from civil societies, from academia, from migrant communities themselves, from the employer groups, and financial institutions, because it's like a complete process. And we have started that processes, and as you know, in 2026, there will be an International Migration Review Forum, which will be held in New York, and there will be a lot of opportunity to showcase some of the practices that we have done, but also try to find a solution on many of the remaining challenges that we face on the ground. And with this, we sincerely hope that the implementation remains grounded, real, focus on the solution based on the real needs, real problems, and real data, and align with the GCM's cooperative spirits. I think that's what we have at this point for the Global Compact on Migration. Do we have more or additional information or updates from the Chair? Are we good? Okay. With that, Madam Chair, in line with also the objectives of the GCM, which is addressing the issues with relating to online scamming and some of those ICT-driven issues or problems, I would like to now give the floor to DG Rinardi to provide more information and updates as well as answers towards the questions given on the online scamming and what the government of Indonesia has taken in terms of the measures as well as the challenges on the ground. To be followed by Mr. Todi Baskoro from our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from the Directorate of Protection of Indonesian Citizens Abroad. Mr. DG, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Director. Good morning, Madam Chair and member of the committee. In previous discussion, some of the member of the committee asking for the situation, the issue for the online scammer, what happened in Cambodia, for especially, and also in Myanmar. Let me explain some story that we have, that how the government of Indonesia provide all of the information for this to maintain or to help the migrant worker that being trapped as a human trafficking in that country. Indonesia views the rise of online job scams and digital-based trafficking in Southeast Asia as an urgent and deeply distressing development. The situation has caused profound pain for Indonesia, as thousands of our citizens, many of them young people, have been deceived, exploited, and trapped in conditions of forced labor. It is not only a criminal issue, but a humanitarian crisis that affects our national conscience. For this reason, Indonesia strongly calls for broader international cooperation to suppress this rapidly expanding transnational crime. Allow me to present Indonesia's measure and the scale of the problem based on verified data that we have. First, Indonesia has intensified cross-border law enforcement cooperation, working closely with police agencies, immigration authorities, and international organizations such as IOM and IODC. Indonesia has also identified and prosecuted domestic recruiters connected to syndicates operating in Cambodia and Myanmar. Second one, the protection and repatriation of Indonesian citizens is a top priority. Cases handled by our embassy in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, rose sharply from 15 cases in 2020 to 30 cases by September 2025. with over 80% linked to online scam compound. Our ministry, the Ministry of Indonesia Migrant Protection, has handled 282 cases from Cambodia this year only, including trafficking indicators, illegal recruitment, contract violation, and unexplained deaths. This escalation reflects the dramatic rise in Indonesia arrival to Cambodia from 14,564 arrival in 2020. You can imagine, rose to 166,795 people in 2024. Cambodian immigration record also shows that 184 Indonesians held long-term visas in 2024, and 102,150 Indonesians were still residing in Cambodia as of August 2025. Many of them entered on tourist visas. This is the problem, because as I already mentioned yesterday, 11 countries in Asian countries has a reciprocal commitment to not have a free visa, so they can visit each country without visa for a visit, short-term visit, 30 days. So later they visit Cambodia, they convert their visit visa into business or long-term stay permit. It is estimated that 87,000 Indonesians currently hold work permit in Cambodia, though many are in fact trapped in illegal digital operations such as scam centers and online gambling hubs. Inside this compound, I can explain some of them based on our evidence visit the victim. Victim endured 12 to 16 hours work day, passport confiscation, coercion, restricted movement, and physical violence. Indonesia is deeply saddened by the rising death toll from 1 Indonesia death in 2020, it is the same time in pandemic, to 110 deaths as of early October 2025. Many believe to be linked to exploitative and dangerous working conditions. And the third one, Indonesia has expanded its prevention and early detection effort, including broad public awareness initiative, tighter oversight of irregular migration routes, and enhanced cyber patrol conducted jointly with national cyber authorities and digital platform. Through this cyber patrol, that under DG protection in our ministry, Indonesia track recruitment pattern. Mostly they are in the social media, identifies fake job advertisement circulated through Facebook, Telegram, TikTok, and etc., and disrupt online channel used by syndicate to lure victims. And the fourth one, Indonesia continues to face legal and operational challenges in destination countries. Victims found in scam compounds are sometimes treated as cybercrime offenders. In November 2025, 106 Indonesians were detained in Phnom Penh, and Indonesia is working to ensure that they are recognized as victims. And at the same time, strict post-repatriation screening is applied, as a small number knowingly join syndicates. Among 26 Indonesians repatriated from Myanmar in October this year, one was identified as a recruiter and is now under investigation in Indonesia. Despite these challenges, Indonesia remains fully committed to protecting victims, ensuring accountability and strengthening legal clarity between victim and perpetrator. I think from me, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. DG, we would like to invite Todi Baskor to provide more information on this.
Thank you, Director Indah. Madam Chair, distinguished committees, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to address more specifically regarding the handling of cases by missions, Indonesian missions in several countries. Since 2021, a trend has emerged involving the recruitment of Indonesian nationals for online scams with indication of human trafficking. This modus operandi has escalated in 2022 and spread to other Southeast Asian countries. To address the case in Cambodia, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs sent 6 technical assistant teams to support Indonesian Embassy in Phnom Penh in handling the case. Moreover, during the period of 2021 through September 2025, Indonesian missions in 10 countries handled a total of 12,565 cases of online scam-related incidents. The highest number of cases was recorded in Cambodia with 7,623 cases, followed by Thailand with 1,919 cases and Myanmar with 1,201 cases. Outside the Asian region, 52 cases were recorded in Belarus and 7 cases in South Africa. A total of 422 Indonesian migrant workers in Cambodia were repatriated at state expense in 11 repatriation waves from August to December 2022. Effort to address the case in Cambodia in 2022 cost at least 6 billion rupiah, or approximately $375,000 with the current rate. We also, in close cooperation with the local authorities in Cambodia and also Myanmar in handling the repatriations, we support the authorities by providing a sufficient document and also provide the Indonesian national with travel documents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then, of course, in addition to that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics of Indonesia has also provided a complaint service for fraudulent content on websites, digital platforms, as well as social media. So we have what we call www.aduancontent.id. This is like a website that we can use. And furthermore, Ministry of Communication and Informatics has also established a mechanism for checking and reporting bank accounts suspected of fraud through another website called checkrekening.id. So there are various platforms and various works done by many relevant ministries. And of course, again, it's not enough at some point, and we continue to work in addressing that. Madam Chair, and then members of the committee, we would now like to invite Mr. Temanenga to provide more updates on the access to justice, to be followed by answers regarding complaint mechanisms with Dirjen Harniati and also Dirjen DG Rinardi. Mr. Temanenga, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Dear. Distinguished Madam Chair and member of the committee, allow me to explain about the issue of the access to justice. Law number 18, 2017, enhanced access to justice for Indonesian migrant workers by guaranteeing their rights to legal protection throughout the migration process. This law requires the government to provide clear work contracts, accessible complaint channels, legal assistance and mediation service, both in Indonesia and in destination countries, through our representative abroad. It also ensures that migrant workers can pursue the remedies for unpaid wage, abuse, or right violation through administrative, civil, or criminal processes, supported by shelter and integrated service. Overall, this law creates a stronger and more accountable system that enables migrant workers to seek protection and fair resolution when their rights are threatened. Indonesia also guarantees the right to consular assistance for every citizen to receive protection and assistance from their country's representative abroad, covering matters such as passport, visa, and immigration assistance. This right is also regulated by international law, especially 1962 Vienna Convention on Consular Relations was ratified through Law Number 1, 1982, through our Directorate of Consular Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, delivers consular notification to foreign mission in Indonesia and facilitate communication with the relevant authorities in case involving foreign nationals who have passed away or are being held by law enforcement authorities. The right to obtain consular assistance is also explicitly stated in Article 21, Paragraph 1 of Law Number 8 of 2017, which include the right one entitled to while working. This also includes assistance, mediation, advocacy, and legal assistance in the form of legal services provided by central government or representative of the Indonesian abroad, as well as guardianship in accordance with local law. The government also established close cooperation through bilateral consular consultation meeting with 8 partner countries held on regular basis, 6 of which serve as major destinations for Indonesian migrant workers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Madam Director. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Director. Good morning, everybody. I would like to deliberate on complaint mechanism conducted by Ministry of Human Rights related to migrant workers' complaint. The Ministry of Human Rights is improving access to remedy by providing human rights complaint service as a dedicated human rights communication service. The Ministry has established 33 complaint posts in regional offices and technical implementation units and is collaborating with the other social and public facilities such as churches and traditional institutions. From this mechanism, since 2020 to 2024, the Human Rights Complaint Service received approximately 4,604 complaints through the, we call it Simas HAM online platform, or directly at the complaint post. Of the total complaint received, 11 related to migrant workers' rights. As follow-up, the Ministry conduct administrative and substantive assessment, we call it mediation mechanism, and coordinate these complaints with relevant stakeholders, including relevant ministers and institutions, the police and provincial government. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll continue regarding the issue that we are talking yesterday discussion regarding the handling complaint and how the government take care the issue from the migrant worker. Madam Chair and member, every complaint submitted by the prospective Indonesian migrant worker or Indonesian migrant worker reflect the public's trust in the state. This is a thing that we have to highlight. To uphold this trust, the government provide a complaint handling mechanism that is swift, transparent, and accessible through both in-person services and non-face-to-face channel, such as what we are use majority today, using WhatsApp, social media, of course, and other official platform. Once a report is received, officer immediately conduct identification and an initial assessment. Within 1 day, we promise for 1 day, the complainant receive a case number, a unique number that they can track the number, like we order something online and then we have a tracking number, and we can use that number to tracking how the progress of the report it is. And a link to monitor, of course, the progress of their case. This ensures that every migrant worker, wherever they are, can feel the presence and support of the state from the very beginning. Complainants who have not yet completed the required document are given up to 30 days. So we don't have to push them to complete in 1 day, because we understand that they have to put all of the document like passport or etc. So we give them at least 30 days to complete them, supported by periodic reminder from both the system and officer. Once the documentation is complete and the case meet the criteria, the team seek approval from the leadership and forward the case to the problem handling team. At this stage, the government provides a range of intervention, from legal or labor consultation, facilitation of social security or insurance claim, clarification to mediation. If this issue cannot be resolved through non-litigation channels, and there are indications of a criminal act, or if the complainant opts for legal proceeding, the government ensure continue litigation assistance. Some cases require the authority for other institutions. To address this, referral mechanisms are available within the ministry and to relevant ministry other and or agency so that each issue is handled by the institution with the appropriate mandate. Upon completion of the handling process, the case is formally closed with comprehensive documentation. All services are provided without distinction regarding migrant worker status. Either they are regular or whether they are also regular or irregular. Data show that 82.6% of assistant concerned non-procedural migrant worker, Indonesia migrant worker, underscoring that government protection is not limited to those who depart through formal procedures, but extend to those often in the most vulnerable situation. Through a comprehensive, responsive, and traceable mechanism, the government demonstrates that protecting migrant workers, Indonesia migrant workers, is a continuous and concrete effort. To ensure that issues uncovered through complaint do not recur and are addressed systematically, the complaint handling process is linked to the broader supervision and sanction mechanism. This allows finding from grievance resolution to fit directly into corrective and enforcement action when regulatory violations are identified. I think from me, yeah, thank you.
Chair, distinguished committee, I would like to have additional information about complaint mechanism in Indonesian missions regarding the service and protections. We have provided various channels by hotline, phone number. We also provide emails, and also we have provide the complaint mechanism in Portal Peduli, and also have a survey, customer satisfactory surveys, and which is collect daily, and we have also have the monitoring and evaluations of the satisfactory customer survey by the Directorate of Protections of Indonesian Nationals abroad. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think we will now move to the cluster of the issues with regards to pathway from irregular to regular migration. And again, I would like to invite DG Rinardi for that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Director. As we already discussed yesterday discussion, we also mentioned again that we also handling with the what we call the recruitment company. So we talking about how the unprocedural become the procedural. Right now we are dealing with the issuing the article that we can use for register all of the unprocedural or unregistered or undocumented migrant worker to be documented. The government of Indonesia recognized that collecting accurate data on irregular Indonesia migrant workers remain a structural challenge within the national migration governance system. Irregular departure often occur outside formal migration channel through unmonitored coastal roads, small informal port, or remote forested border areas, which result in the absence of this worker data in national system. The government also acknowledged that Indonesia cannot independently obtain precise information on irregular Indonesia migrant worker abroad, as data on work visas, residency permits, and employment status lies fully under the jurisdiction of destination countries. Even aggregate data is not consistently published or shared by all countries. For this reason, the accuracy of data collection is highly dependent on the strength of bilateral cooperation and the willingness of destination countries to exchange information in a safe and structured manner. Despite this limitation, we also to strengthen that Indonesia has strengthened its effort to improve data collection through several technical measures aimed at reaching Indonesia migrant workers who migrated regularly with the ministerial regulation numbers 27 year 2025. This regulation was issued on October 8, 2025, just recently, and is currently in the preparation phase before full implementation. One key advancement under this regulation is the establishment of an overseas Indonesia migrant worker data collection mechanism through a Halo Migran system, which is fully integrated with our system, what we call as in Indonesia Cisco P2MI, Indonesia National Migrant Worker Database that we have. This mechanism enables Indonesia migrant workers, including those who departed irregularly, to register their identity, upload available supporting document, and undergo verification by Indonesian mission abroad, as well as the Minister Regional Service unit in their area of their origin. The government plans to begin implementation through a pilot project in Malaysia next year as the first partner country. And importantly, through this process, Indonesia migrant workers who were previously categorized as non-procedural under Indonesia regulation may have the opportunity to become fully procedural migrant workers, provided they meet all requirements outlined in Regulation Number 27, year 2025. While this mechanism does not change the worker immigration status in the host country, it is still ensured that they are recorded in the government system and may transition to full procedural status once our required verification and compliance steps are completed. This inclusion also allows workers to access essential protection services, legal assistance, emergency repatriation, and reintegration or empowerment program upon return. Verification by Indonesian mission abroad serves as an important step toward building a more comprehensive data set on irregular Indonesia migrant workers. The government acknowledges, however, that such verification is limited by the worker's ability to present valid documentation. To reach those in more vulnerable situations, Indonesia has strengthened the role of its mission by facilitating manual data collection, conducting outreach visits to worker communities, and expanding access to information services through citizen service unit. To better understand the scale of irregular migration, maybe I can give us for some example. Indonesia used measurable indicators such as the number of irregular departure attempts prevented by our ministry, the Ministry of Immigration and Law Enforcement Agency, as well as the number of deportation from destination country. Although these indicators do not represent the exact number of irregular Indonesia migrant workers, they still provide a clear picture of the continued pressure and risk associated with irregular migration route. These insights are used to map high-risk departure corridor and migration patterns that require targeted intervention. Through this effort, the government of Indonesia reaffirmed that data collection and protection measures apply not only to those who migrate through regular channels, but also to those who travel irregularly and are often the most vulnerable in destination countries. Indonesia remains committed to strengthening this mechanism to ensure that all Indonesian migrant workers, regardless their migration pathway, remain within the reach of the state protection. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Director. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Chair and distinguished member, allow me to present about increased awareness or safe migration campaign, particularly through the implementation of the pre-employment orientation program. In October 2025, officially KP2MI launched the pre-employment orientation initiative as part of our national effort to promote safe, orderly, and well-governed migration. Although newly initiated, the program has already reached 15 regencies, covering 684 villages and engaging 1,430 village authorities across the country. This program is designed to strengthen the capacity of village authorities who serve the closest link to prospective migrant workers. Under Law Number 18 of 2017, village authorities play a vital role in migration governance. Their responsibilities include verifying migrant data, facilitating civil documentation, monitoring departures and return, and supporting the empowerment of migrant workers and their families. Through the pre-employment orientation program, these authorities are not only recipients of information, but also become key actors in disseminating accurate knowledge on safe migration procedures. This is essential in preventing irregular migration and protecting our citizens from exploitation. Looking ahead, we aim to scale up this initiative by introducing a training of trainers program for village authorities that will enable them to serve the first point of contact for prospective migrant workers, ensuring that candidate migrant workers receive credible, timely, and comprehensive information before entering the migration process. Our approach is aligned with the four-stage orientation framework promoted by international partners such as IOM. This includes pre-implementation orientation, pre-departure orientation, post-arrival orientation, and pre-return orientation. To date, the pre-employment component has been delivered together with ILO and IOM and SBME, ensuring that frontline authorities receive standardized and accurate training materials. Beyond capacity building, the government has also expanded its public information strategy. On our flagship initiative is the Desa Migran Emas, or Golden Migrant Village program. This community-based model empower village authorities to serve as frontline providers of safe migration information, offering verified job opportunities, guidance on required documentation, and awareness of the risks as well as associated with irregular recruitment. Desa Migran Emas also function as an information and referral center for pre-departure preparation and official grievance mechanism. Going forward, KP2MI is committed to enhance this ecosystem through the development of new regulation that will establish a more systematic evaluation mechanism for pre-departure training. This improvement will include measurable assessment tools, strengthen instructor qualification, enhanced monitoring, and more effective follow-up mechanism. We also plan to broaden digital outreach and deepen collaboration with village authorities under the Desa Migran Mass Framework, ensuring the accurate information reach even the most remote communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And then now we would like to move to the questions regarding infrastructures at our missions abroad, handling the issues related to migrant workers. For that, Mr. Todi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Director Indah, Madam Chairs, distinguished committees. I would like to address the how the Indonesian missions handling cases related to migrant workers. As first responders, the missions of Indonesia are mandated to provide immediate consular assistance and to engage with the competent authorities of the receiving state to ensure the protection of the rights of Indonesian nationals. The handling of cases involving Indonesian in conflict with local laws is undertaken without presuming their criminal or civil liabilities and with full respect for domestic legal framework of the host state and as well as applicable international law. For vulnerable groups, including women and children, Indonesian missions endeavor to provide shelter facilities when required or to coordinate their placement in shelter operated by local authorities. At present, 19 Indonesian missions abroad are equipped with temporary shelter facilities, the majority of which are designated for women and children. 19 temporary shelters are located in missions in Kuala Lumpur, Johor Bahru, Penang, Kuching, Kota Kinabalu, Tawau, Singapore, Bandar Seri Begawan, Riyadh, Jeddah, Dubai, Baghdad, Cairo, Tokyo, Cape Town, Muscat, Manama, Beirut, and Taipei. To ensure uniform and accountable service delivery in the administrations of these facilities, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has issued the guidelines for the management of temporary shelters at Indonesian missions abroad, promulgated through the decree of the Minister of Foreign Affairs number 46/B/PK/09/2023/01 of 2023. These guidelines serve as comprehensive reference for the governance of temporary shelters, including the establishment of operational standards, the development of more measurable budget planning processes, and the strengthening of monitoring and evaluation mechanism. They further prescribe norms related to human resources management and training for personnel assigned to operate the shelters. As part of broader institutional strengthening effort to ensure more effective protection and service for Indonesian nationals, a total of 29 Indonesian missions have been designated as integrated protection missions in 2025. The 29 missions are missions in Ankara, Bandar Seri Begawan, Bangkok, Damascus, Den Haag, Doha, Hanoi, Cairo, Kuala Lumpur, Kuwait City, Colombo, Manila, Phnom Penh, Riyadh, Seoul, Singapore, Tokyo, Tripoli, Vientiane, Yangon, Dubai, Hong Kong, Jeddah, Johor Bahru, Kota Kinabalu, Kuching, New York, Penang, and Tawau. This designation was conferred through the decree of the Minister of Foreign Affairs number 15/B/PK/01/2025/01 of 2025 concerning the designation of integrated protection missions. The determination of such status is based on the volume of cases involving Indonesian nationals, including migrant workers, handled by the respective missions, as well as the scale of consular services provided to Indonesian citizens in the countries of accreditations. To ensure the effective operationalization of this system, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has promulgated the technical guidelines for Indonesia's integrated protection missions through the decree of Minister of Foreign Affairs number 16/B/PK/01/2025. These technical guidelines constitute an authoritative framework for strengthening Indonesia's overall protection architecture, including the enhancement and professional development of the human resources entrusted with the administering the system. Furthermore, the guidelines delineate the procedures for establishing integrated protection task force, which are mandated to ensure that the system is implemented in full conformity with the standards, protocols, and directives set forth therein. These enhancement measures are being undertaken to address several persistent challenges. First, missions continue to face overcapacity conditions in shelters, especially. In addition, the physical condition and accommodation capacity of shelter facilities have not been sufficiently supported by adequate budget allocation for maintenance and renovations. Furthermore, limitation in the number of personnel assigned to manage the shelters have resulted in a disproportionate workload and heightened stress levels among staff. As of 13 November 2025, a total of 385 Indonesian migrant workers were recorded as residing in temporary accommodations across 19 shelters. Of this number, 371 are women, and 14 are children. The shelters with the highest occupancy are Indonesian missions shelters in Riyadh, 75%, and Indonesian mission shelters in Kuala Lumpur, 56%. Capacity building for consular officers and staff responsible for providing services and protection is carried out centrally by the Directorate for the Protection of Indonesian Citizens. Training is provided to consular officers during the pre-deployment preparation prior to assignment and periodically while they are serving at Indonesian missions abroad. Training is also delivered as part of the tiered diplomatic training program in cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Center for Education and Training. The form of training provided include technical training on trafficking person handling, technical training on managing cases involving Indonesian nationals in distress, including management within shelters, technical training on job order module, and training on verification of the self-reporting module. Training on the use of various digital applications for civil registration documents issuance services, digital identity management, passport processing, and hotline handling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I would like now to move to the next cluster of issues being questioned, particularly on the issue of racism and xenophobic practices and the way to address that. I would give the floor to DG Harniati to be followed by Ibu Penda on the disability issues. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director. Madam Chair, distinguished members, I would express more on the issue of the racism, xenophobia. Indonesia would like to reaffirm that we strongly condemn xenophobia, racism, and all forms of discrimination. This applies both to foreign nationals living in Indonesia and to Indonesian citizens who may face discrimination abroad. Respect for diversity has always been an important part of our national identity. Indonesia also has a strong legal basis to prevent and address racial and ethnic discrimination. We are state party to the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, and its principles have been incorporated into our national legislation. Law number 40 of 2008 on the elimination of racial and ethnic discrimination clearly defines prohibited conduct. Additional protection are found in 1940 Constitution, the Human Rights Law, the Employment Law, and the Law on the Protection of Indonesian Migrant Workers. Together, these instruments guarantee fair and equal treatment for all individuals, including migrant workers. At the institutional level, several national bodies support the implementation of this protection. In the Indonesian Human Rights Commission, we call it Komnas HAM, the Ombudsman and the Ministry of Manpower all play important roles in receiving concern, monitoring complaints, and promoting access to justice. Foreign workers are further protected under Government Regulation number 34 of 2021. Based on available information, Indonesia does not observe any broad or systematic pattern of xenophobia or violence directed toward foreign migrant workers. Indonesia recognizes that, as in many diverse societies, isolated incidents of discriminatory behavior may occasionally occur. However, these not reflect wider societal attitudes. Indonesia remains committed to uphold equality and non-discrimination and continues to promote respect for the rights of all individuals. For Indonesians abroad, the government provides active and continuous support. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs uses the Peduli when it platform Indonesian citizen platform and our global consular network to register citizens, provide timely assistance, and coordinated with the host country authorities when concern arise. Our mission maintains 24-hour hotlines and can facilitate legal, psychological, or humanitarian support where needed. Indonesia migration and labor policies also set out clear responsibilities to ensure the welfare and safety of our citizens overseas. In conclusion, Indonesia remains fully committed to preventing and responding to racism, xenophobia, discrimination, and any form of ill treatment or violence, ensuring the protection and access to justice for all migrant workers and their families, whether in Indonesia or abroad, continues to be a core national priority. Thank you.
With regard to issue of disabilities, Legal Basic Article number 18 of Law of 2017, Article number 9 of Presidential Regulation number 113 of 2024, Law number 8 of 2016 on persons with disabilities. Authority and mandate Ministry of Protection of Indonesian migrant workers provide medical rehabilitation, compensation, and reintegration for injured or disabled returns. Implementation, BPJS, Social Security Agency, insurance cover workplace injured shelter provide psychotherapy, assistive tools, and reintegration training. 118 sick disabled migrant workers in Indonesia were cited in 2025. Challengers and follow-up facilities still lack accessibility standard. Ministry of Protection of Indonesia migrant worker allocates 5% of shelter budget to accessibility upgrade and ensure all staff complete disability inclusive service training. The Ministry of Manpower has the authority to provide protection for Indonesian migrant workers who experience occupational accident in their country of employment, as mandated by the Ministry of Manpower Regulation number 4 of 2023 on social protection for Indonesian outline a range of benefits for the workers themselves as well as for their families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then now we would also like to provide answers and updates with regards to question on the coordination among ministries as well as with other stakeholders, which includes our civil societies, our national human rights institutions, and communities as a whole. For that, I would like to give the floor for DG Rinardi, DG Harniati, and Madam Roy Hatul Aswida for that. So we continue with DG Harniati first for the coordination. Okay, and we'll start with Ibu Roy Hatul first.
Thank you, Madam Director. Thank you. Sorry.
No.
sit on. Thank you, Madam Director. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Good morning, all of the members of the committees. I would like to share the information on the role of the CSO, the civil society organization, and also the national human rights institutions. To strengthen and expand protection for migrant workers and their families, the Indonesian government also collaborates with various civil society organizations and other social partners, including the UN organizations, IOM, and also UNICEF. Here, many community organizations have a very important role, as information on complaints is often obtained from community organizations. Many of community organizations assist migrant workers in filing complaints and participate in resolving migrant workers' complaints, typically by assisting them with document completion and also assisting them during clarification and mediation. Here it's also important to note the role of national human rights institutions, as they are providing also complaint mechanism, complement to complaint mechanism that provided by the government. And the national human rights institutions also actively monitoring compliance while also providing recommendation to related institutions. Madam Director, Madam Chairperson, and also members of the committee, I will also take the opportunity to respond to the question on gender representation and minority group representation in Komnas HAM raised yesterday. The current Human Rights Commission consists of 8 commissioners, 3 of whom are women, compared to only 1 woman out of 7 in the previous period, reflecting concrete progress in gender representation. The Human Rights Commission also previously included 1 commissioner with disabilities who recently resigned for personal reasons. These developments reflect Indonesia's continued efforts to enhance diversity and strengthen representation, including of women and minority groups, in line with previous recommendations. With A status accreditation now reinstated, the government of Indonesia is taking steps to ensure that this status is sustainably maintained. This effort includes ensuring transparent and merit-based selection of commissioners, and also strengthening institutional independence and effectiveness in accordance with the Paris principles. Madam Chair and Madam Director also may also share information on the NPM raised by Madam Zumhur yesterday. Indonesia has in fact developed an operational system to prevent torture and ill treatment that reflects many of the core principles of the optional protocol of the Convention Against Torture, even without relying on a formal OPCAT framework. The system functions through the cooperation for the prevention of torture and ill treatment, which brings together Komnas HAM, the Human Rights Commission, Komnas Perempuan, the Women Commission, Children Commission, the Ombudsman, and the Witness and Victim Protection Agency. Working collectively, this institution, this mechanism has formed a coordinated independent mechanism that resembles a national preventive mechanism in both structure and function. In terms of effectiveness, this mechanism has been able to work closely with the government institutions, particularly the Ministry of Law and Human Rights, through formal cooperation agreements with the Directorate General of Corrections and Directorate General of Immigration. This mechanism has secured access to prisons, detention houses, immigration detention centers, and other similar facilities. In the period of 2019 to 2024, 7 correctional facilities were visited, including 5 correctional facilities in Papua and 3 correctional facilities in South Sulawesi, and also Kupang Immigration Detention Center in East Nusa Tenggara. It should be noted also that in 2022, Women Commission also monitored the placement practices of Indonesian female migrant workers in 5 overseas training centers. And thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Director.
Thank you, Director, Madam Chair, and all distinguished members. Let me share more information how Indonesian coordination mechanism supported in business and human rights program. Indonesia uphold the principles on business and human rights. The National Strategy on Business and Human Rights has been issued through Presidential Regulation number 60 of 2023 as a policy framework to integrate human rights protection into business activities aligned with the UN Guiding Principle on Business and Human Rights. The strategy focused on 3 pillars. Firstly, the state's duty to protect human rights. Secondly, business responsibility to respect human rights. And last one, the right of individual to access effective remedies. The national strategy includes measures such as improving regulation, raising awareness among public and private stakeholders, and strengthening grievances mechanism. On the implementation of the national strategy on business and human rights, by 2024, 71% participation in reporting of minister agencies, local government agencies, 88% of minister agencies and 63% of provincial government had participated in the reporting cycle. The Ministry of State-Owned Enterprise has conducted dissemination and training program on business and human rights for a total of 747 participants from 71 state-owned enterprises throughout Indonesia in 2024. The Ministry of Home Affairs issued a circular letter regarding the call for the involvement of local communities, we call it Masyarakat Adat, in business and human rights activities to all governors and region mayors in Indonesia. Ministry of Village Development of Disadvantaged Villages and Transmigration conducted dissemination and training to village-owned enterprises on business and human rights in all provinces in Indonesia. Ministry of Law and Human Rights has completed and implemented guidelines for dissemination business and human rights to ministry agencies, guidelines for the implementation of PRISMA, business and human risk assessment for business actors, technical guidance to 38 provinces and 70 ministries institutions along with non-government partner regarding national strategy for business and human rights. In implementation of PRISMA, around 390 companies have participated in the use of PRISMA online system, business and human risk assessment online, which is voluntary mechanism with the increase of over 100 companies in the past year. The dissemination has been conducted for 1,800 high school students and over 1,000 university students regarding capacity building and understanding of business and human rights through materials of safeguarding, gender bullying prevention, child labor prevention, youth participation, and environment. Ministry of Health has a healthy and productive women worker movement program across all Indonesian provinces. And as a result, 1,900 companies across Indonesia has implemented the program. The Ministry of Manpower has completed implemented mapping 1,497 companies that have national policies on labor protection, socialization and dissemination on information related to child labor prevention to 390 participation from company representative, NGOs, government agencies, and vocational school. and guidelines for the prevention and handling of sexual violence in the workplace. Ministry of Communication and Informatics has produced 292 pieces of content and dissemination information related business and human rights through various channels. Ministry of Cooperative and Small Medium Enterprise has conducted outreach to over 100 SMEs representatives regarding the implementation of National Strategy for Business and Human Rights. Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy has conducted outreach to more than 30 accommodation companies regarding ministerial regulation concerning business activity standard for the implementation risk-based business licensing in tourism sector and implementation of accommodation business standard. And Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection has prepared and disseminated technical guidelines for the provision and service standard for women workers and employees protection housing in the workplace. Ministry of Trade has conducted training for SMEs with disabilities. Ministry of Industry has mapped 103 companies that have obtained green industry certification. The Ministry of Agriculture has prepared 3 draft ministerial regulations integrating business and human rights perspective. The Witness and Victim Protection Agency has developed and disseminated technical guidelines for the implementation of rehabilitation and psychological assistance for victims of crime, including crime with business and human rights dimension. Currently, the drafting is being carried by Ministry of Human Rights. Presidential regulation draft is primarily intended to adopt implemented the UN guiding principle by business, including the state duty to protect human rights, corporate responsibility to respect human rights, and access to remedy. And the Indonesian government has established a roadmap for realizing the national human rights due diligence policy. Namely 2025 formulation of national human rights due diligence policy is still underway. 2026 massive outreach, intensive coordination, strengthening of the Ministry of Human Rights regional offices, piloting and mentoring and development of Prisma platform. 2027 implementation of human rights due diligence piloting and mentoring. And the last 2028 through 2029, business actors implemented human rights due diligence. Thank you.
Yeah, to add more information regarding Madam Harniati already mentioned before, I would like to also to mention about the coordinating between the government, central government, and all other ministries in central government. At the national level, migrant worker protection is implemented through close cooperation between the Ministry of Indonesia Migrant Worker Protection, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and immigration authorities and law enforcement agencies, local government, and other relevant ministries. Ministry of Immigration plays a critical frontline role by preventing irregular departure through strengthened checks, document verification, risk pattern detection, and alignment of departure data with technical agencies. This ensures that protection effectively begins at Indonesia's point of access. Interagency coordination also underpins Indonesia's various bilateral agreements with destination countries, such as the government-to-government program with the Republic of Korea, healthcare and specified skilled worker scheme with government of Japan, protection framework with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the domestic worker arrangement with Malaysia. This arrangement establishes clear standards of protection, including standardized contract, clarity on wages and working hours, communication rights, and accessible grievance and dispute resolution mechanism. And on the other hand, in destination countries, protection is strengthened through the services of Indonesian mission abroad, which operate in close coordination with the Ministry of Indonesia Migrant Protection, immigration authorities, and technical institutions at home. Mission provide legal assistance, labor dispute mediation, emergency support, prison visit, and temporary shelter for workers requiring immediate protection. Strong and continuous coordination ensure cases are addressed swiftly, proportionately, and in accordance with the specific need of each worker. The Ministry of Migrant Workers function as the national authority responsible for developing regulation and overseeing overall policy implementation. Operational execution is delegated to our line office in the region, which act as the minister technical arm to ensure consistent application of national standards across all regions. Throughout Indonesia, and regional office minister work in direct coordination with local government to conduct migrant registration, prevent irregular migration, facilitate pre-departure preparation, handle cases, and manage return and reintegration process. This creates a coherent linkage between national policy making and local level service delivery. Thank you.
With your permission and your indulgence, Madam Chair, we have two big clusters that we'd like to address before we are giving back the floor to you, Madam Chair, which are clustered on the ratification as well as on the statistics. And for that, I will provide some information on the CPED, the process that we have had, and at later stage on the ILO convention, we will invite Mr. Kama, Madam Erlina, and Mr. Fadil to answer that. And with regards to the process of the ratification of International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances, as questioned by the committee before, this is the last major international human rights instrument that yet to be ratified by us, by Indonesia. But for sure, CPED has been prioritized in line with the recommendation from previous universal periodic review cycles that we have in 2017 and 2022. So this commitment is, of course, further enhanced and evidence in the inclusion of the process of the ratification in our National Action Plan, underscoring our dedication to fulfilling international commitments on this. The process itself have to follow the thorough process involving coordination among government ministries and relevant ministries and the parliamentary approval. I think it goes the same in so many countries as well. And the executive branch, led by the president and the relevant ministries, prepares and submits a draft bill to the House of Representatives for the deliberation and approval. Significant progress has been made with the draft bill for the CPED ratification signed by the President and the relevant ministries, and then now it has been submitted to our Parliament, marking a critical step in this legislative process. So we will continue the process and we will keep you updated, Madam Chair and members of the committee. With regards to the recommendation on ratifying the optional protocol on communication procedures and individual complaint mechanism, I think it is also important to note that Indonesia has already had individual complaint mechanisms through national human rights institutions. It is worth an observation as well as a highlights that our National Human Rights Commission, Komnas HAM, is an independent national human rights institution with A accredited status by GANRI, or the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions. We also have Komnas Perempuan, the National Commission Against Violence Against Women, as an independent complaint mechanism, especially for violence against women, including girls' issues. And we also have National Commission on Child Protection, or KPAI, for specific individual complaints on the cases involving children. Moreover, we also have the National Commission on Persons with Disabilities, or KND, offering a formal complaint mechanism and active monitoring compliance while providing recommendations for issues related to persons with disabilities to government. We also have an extensive law complaint channel or mechanism at the Ministry of Human Rights, which has been explained by Madam Harniati before, what we call Yan Kohoham, or Human Rights Communication Services. And again, we are more than happy to provide more details for those two big clusters. For the additional information on ILO, relevant ILO ratification, I would like to invite Mr. Kama to provide more, to be followed by Mrs. Erlina and Mr. Fadil. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Director. Allow me to briefly respond to the issue of labor inspection before moving to matters related to ILO Convention number 129. In Indonesia, labor inspection is regulated by Law number 3 of 1951 on labor inspection and Law number 13 of 2003 on manpower, which outline the range of labor norms that inspectors must monitor, from employment contracts and wages to working hours, safety standards, and social protection. Indonesia has also ratified ILO Convention number 81 concerning labor inspection in industry and commerce through Law number 21 of 2003 to further reinforce its legal framework for labor oversight. Through this framework, inspectors are empowered to conduct workplace visits, issue corrective measures, and enforce compliance when violations occur. Law number 23 of 2014 on regional government further mandates labor inspection responsibilities to provincial governments to bring inspection services closer to the ground, enabling quicker responses to complaints and more consistent enforcement across regions. These laws form a coherent system that ensures labor inspectors have both the authority and the structure needed to uphold fair and decent working conditions throughout Indonesia. They align national standards with regional implementation, creating a unified approach to worker protection. Currently, Indonesia deploys a total of 1,398 labor inspectors across the country to serve as the front line of labor law enforcement, working to prevent violations and promote safe, just, and lawful workplaces. 130 inspectors are based within the Ministry of Manpower to set standards, coordinate inspections programs, guide provincial offices, and handle cases that require central-level oversight or technical expertise. Meanwhile, 1,268 inspectors operate within provincial governments across Indonesia to carry out on-site inspections, address complaints, and ensure that the legal mandates established at the national level are effectively implemented in every region. Now, with regard to ILO Convention number 129 on labor inspection in agriculture, Indonesia has not ratified the instrument. We are currently conducting an internal assessment to ensure full legal, institutional, and resource readiness before undertaking additional treaty obligations. Given the specific technical requirements for agricultural workplaces and the shared responsibilities between central and local governments, this review is necessary to ensure that eventual implementation can be carried out effectively and sustainably. Nevertheless, labor inspection already applies across all sectors, including agriculture. Existing laws enable inspectors to monitor compliance, provide guidance, and address violations in plantations, smallholder agriculture, and informal rural workplaces. Indonesia is also enhancing inspection capacity through additional training, improved digital reporting tools, and strengthened coordination between the Ministry of Manpower and regional labor offices. These efforts help ensure more consistent enforcement and better protection for workers nationwide. Thank you, Madam.
With regards to ILO Conventions number 189 on domestic workers, Indonesia remains strongly committed to ensuring that domestic workers are entitled to dignity, status, and equal protections before, during, and after employment, including access to fair and effective dispute resolution mechanisms. The government has expressed clear support for integrating these principles of Conventions number 189 into the Domestic Workers Protection Bill. Under this bill, domestic workers are entitled to protections such as decent wage, reasonable working and rest hours, paid leave and days off, and safeguards against discrimination, sexual violence, and other forms of abuse, as well as occupational safety and health standards. On ILO Conventions number 190, Indonesia prioritized preventive and responsive actions in addressing violence and harassment in the workplace through a shared and cross-sectoral approach. One significant development was the enactment of Law Number 12 of 2022 on sexual violence crimes, which establishes a comprehensive legal basis for preventing sexual violence, protecting victims, and ensuring access to justice. This law applies across sectors, including the workplace, and provides strong guarantees for protections, recovery, and prosecutions. To operationalize these provisions at the workplace level, the Ministry of Manpower issued Decree number 88 of 2023 on guidelines for preventing and handling sexual violence in the workplace. These guidelines require employers to establish preventive measures and adopt internal policies, also ensure confidential reporting channels, and provide support services without retaliations. Victims are also guaranteed access to medical care, psychological support, and accompaniment throughout the reporting and recovery process. Indonesia has complemented these efforts through Government Regulations number 30 of 2025 on prevention, handling, protections, and recovery for victims of sexual violence, and Government Regulations number 27 of 2024 on coordinations and monitoring of sexual violence, preventions, and victim protections. Together, these instruments form coordinated systems that involves labor authorities, health services, law enforcement, and social support institutions. In practical terms, many of the substantive requirements of the Convention, such as prevention frameworks, internal compliance mechanisms, access to legal, psychosocial support, guarantees for victim protections, are already in place within Indonesia's domestic framework. This concludes my response, Madam Director.
Thank you. Another addition for the ILO C-155. Indonesia in principle supports the strengthening of occupational safety and health, or OSH standards. Currently, OSH matters are regulated nationally, including through law on occupational safety. Furthermore, OSH remains a key priority in employment recovery, particularly for workers in high-risk environments. Existing regulations ensure that workplaces adhere to stringent safety standards, including job-related risk guarantees and protection from exploitation. At this stage, we are still conducting a comprehensive assessment before it can formally consider ratification. We believe ensuring the regulatory frameworks and institutional readiness beforehand is a must. Ratification would also require adequate budget allocation and policy harmonization among the government, employers, and trade unions. In this context, Indonesia remains open to the possibility of ratification in the future, consistent with its commitment to strengthening worker protection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Madam Chair, members of the committee, as you know, we still have a long list of answers, but we'd like to return the floor to Madam Chair and to have the next round of the dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Director Indah Nuria Savitri. Thank you as well to the head of delegation, Director General for Protections, Mr. Rinaldi Rusman, and to all the members of the delegations for the answers to this question, who are very structured, and all the information that have been given so far. Allow me as well to give again the floor to the rapporteur, to the country rapporteurs for this dialogue, and as well to the expert of the committee for additional questions they may have and that they would like the delegation to address. I would like to start with Mr. Kariawasam. Kariawasam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I start substantive discussions, let me express my sympathy and solidarity with the people of Indonesia who have suffered the massive floods. Just like my country, I'm from Sri Lanka, we have all suffered. But both our countries have suffered equally 2004 tsunami, and we came back very quickly, and similarly, I think we are recovering fast. But my sympathy and solidarity with the people of Indonesia on this occasion. With regard to the professional manner in which the delegation answered these questions raised by first round of constructive dialogue is a manifestation of the authorities of Indonesia to implement the convention provisions as best as possible and also take care of its migrant workers and members of their families, no doubt. But as we know, challenges remain. And as we know, there are so much of hurdles to circumvent. There are hurdles, there are challenges, there is room for improvement. So our dialogue, our consultations are going in that direction. In that context, I would wish to ask you with regard to very important questions, very important issue with regard to interagency coordination, which you have explained to some extent, but I want to be more specific in that context. Often authorities in every country come up with new regulations, new ideas, new institutions with the good intention of implementing the convention provisions as well as serving the migrant workers as best as possible. But it creates sometimes more challenges. Sometimes it creates little confusion for the stakeholders. So my question is in that context, Indonesian Law 18/2017, which is commendable for adopting a whole government approach to improve coordination between government agencies at every level, national, provincial, has been a good initiative. And in that context, we would like to hear from you, how are you proceeding with that law? I think there are revisions coming up. When you are doing the revisions, what is the method you are adopting? Are you ensuring that the law is in line with the letter and the spirit of this convention, which you are a very important party? And how is in that context, the one-stop service centers you have established working? Are they effective? Are you happy with the way it works, or you want to do more about it? And then you have established a dedicated Ministry on Migrant Workers Protection, KP2MI, and that is to replace or augment the Ministry of Manpower. And in that process, how is the transition is working? How is the regulation, such as the Government Regulation 59/2021 and Government Regulation 20/2022, with regard to migrant seafarers and migrant fishers are working? And whether you are happy with its implementation or whether you are thinking of more improvement, and whether you will be able to give us more information as you are working on that. And a very important issue with regard to migrant seafarers and migrant fishers, there are two institutions working on it, that is the KP2MI and Minister of Transport. Now, how are they? Now, is it something that you are pushing these seafarers and migrant workers from pillar to post, and they are a little confused as to where to get this, how it works, and as a result, recruitment agencies can play around? And how are you going to address that issue in the context of the law of 18/2017? So we would like to have a greater explanation with regard to the law 18/2017 and its implementation, and your plans with regard to its ultimate fruition. Now, in this context, I also want to talk a little bit about digitalization of of various stages of migration process and facilities for migrant workers. Now, we are very happy with the explanation given by you with regard to how you handle the cyber crimes in or cyber crime efforts in where a lot of your nationals got caught in countries in South Asia. You created the Cyber Patrol. You had 6 technical committees going to countries to assist the thing, and you have created several digital platforms to prevent that happening. That is all good. But here, something that very important, which is common for countries like you and for like Sri Lanka, digitalization of the processes can actually improve the service delivery for many migrant workers across the board if we handle it properly. One is, it's a challenge with regard to those who want to hack the system and those who are cheating the system through digital. Other one is the government using digitalization to make the processes easy. For instance, I want to mention in Sri Lanka, I am aware that the certification of documents for migrant workers now 90% digitalized. No migrant worker in any remote region has to come to Colombo for that. They can do it in the regional capitals. They go to the regional, and then they can. Digital processes are being used to make life easy for migrant workers so that they don't have to travel far and wide to get their papers registered. Are you having initiatives like that? The one-stop service centers, are they fully digitalized, or you have plans to digitalize? So the digital world we are in is challenging, but it is coming. AI is coming. We have no way to avoid that. AI will be used for good purposes and for bad purposes. So countries like you who have the talent and the capacity should be ready. And my question is, are you ready, and what are the initiatives you are taking in that? One, to use digital processes to serve the migrant workers. Second, to use platforms and units like Cyber Patrol to prevent those who want to cheat the system, those who want to abuse the system, preventing use the system. So that's a very important aspect, and its time has come for all, in fact, all migrant worker origin countries to think about that, because AI will provide opportunities both for service of migrant workers and to cheat them. So it is authorities that has to be ahead of the curve now. So what are your plans for that? Other question I have in mind is about the voting process. I want to congratulate you for establishing a law to provide migrant workers voting in countries that they are. Can you explain how you are operationalizing that, given it's not an easy process, we fully understand, but what are the efforts you have taken to implement the provisions, especially because you have now become a very vibrant democracy in South Asia. You are a very large democracy, so it is not easy. But then, how are you handling that process? And are you having plans to allow migrant workers also to stand for election from wherever they are? Another issue I have in mind is domestic workers. As you know, 70% of your migrant workers, like in Sri Lanka too, are females, and most of them are in domestic work. And domestic work is a very challenging situation because it is between walls that's happening. It's not transparent. The abusers are not transparent. So we are having a challenge. That doesn't mean that challenge, just because challenge is there, we can't leave it aside. We have to find ways and means to protect those who are being abused. Majority of the domestic workers are not abused, that I agree, but there is a significant amount that is abused, and you have explained very well how you have set up various centers in various countries where a large number of migrant workers are living, to have safe houses for them. That's a good thing, and but in addition to that, what are the efforts you are taking with regard to having legal mechanisms established and working with like-minded countries and working with labor receiving countries to address this issue so that domestic workers and those who are working in entertainment industry, both domestic work and entertainment industry, are protected all the time, and most these parties are females, and they are vulnerable and they need protection. I have another issue with regard to your process for regularizing irregular migrants and creating pathway for regularization. You explained, and it's a good initiatives. In this regard, what is the situation with regard to Rohingya refugees who may be, you can give the numbers, where you know the number, how many numbers you have. Do you have created pathways for them to find work in your country, or they are still under total protection of the UNHCR only? And if you, of course, it will be good that if you can provide them pathway for regular work, make them regular, because their issues are very substantial. So some information about Rohingya refugees and the possibility for them to work legally in your country, this I would welcome. Well, I think I will stop at that. My co-rapporteur will have more questions and others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kariawa-Sam, for this additional question. I give now the floor to the co-rapporteur, Madame Zemmour. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and please really allow me to thank the delegation of Indonesia on very constructive dialogue and very comprehensive answers on our yesterday questions. And there is very small space for additional questions, but I will use this opportunity to get clarification of some of your answers. First of all, my colleague Prasad already mentioned the issue of digitalization, and I know that is a challenge for all countries, including my country. And but I would like to put that in context of fact that there is still very high level of involvement private actors in recruitment process of migrants. Having in mind that that process requiring maintenance of so many personal data, what is intention of Indonesia government to ensure protection of personal data of migrant workers, particularly in this process when recruitment is very high led by private actors? My second question related to that, what is intention of your government to finally reduce control of a migration process, involvement of private actors? I know that size of your state and size of population and particularly migration process make difficulties to do more strategic approach for that, but definitely it is very important when we are speaking from human rights approach to ensure that all those actions are in accordance with international standards. I would like to thank on update related to national human rights institutions, and my congratulations that you finally increase the gender balance and involvement of inclusion of national minority person. I hope that person who resigned based on personal reasons will be recruited with other person with disability. But at the same time, I would like to ask about data, about real work of national human rights institution in migration area, and what is access of migrants abroad to national human rights institution, how they are able to communicate with you. And when we are speaking on those abroad, I'm so glad that you established those temporary shelters in missions They are very relevant for migrants. But can you provide us with the information on operation of those shelters? It is not enough to establish that mechanisms. It is also important to have accessibility to them, and how much they use from migrants. Maybe you have data, and to see what are the experiences. Maybe this model can be used also for other countries which are in similar situation as your country. How much migrants have interest to use this this service. There also was answer related to cooperation with civil society. It is so good explained, but as I can assess, it is more, you see role of civil society organizations more as service providers, and your report saying that they are providing assistance to migrants and so on, but it is not partnership. Partnership means to be real involvement of civil society in the process of creation policy, strategies, and so on. How much civil society is consulted in the process of creation those documents, particularly if we are speaking on the prevention and when we are speaking on dealing with the causes of migration. Also, my colleague mentioned this coordination. To be honest, it between institutions, particularly those two institutions, transition period between those two subjects. For us, it's important. Ministry of Migrant Workers Protection, and Ministry of Manpower. I think that we see that there is problem if migrants still are not sure which of those institutions are really responsible. It should be CS vision how to change that, and if there is need to change legislation, or if there should be some rule books adopted, but definitely public awareness. We are speaking on migrant seafarers and migrant fishers, particularly affected by this element. Also on trafficking in persons. Some sources saying that measures have been established and some criminal cases were taken, but only punished those perpetrators in Indonesia, without taking main perpetrators, those who are in some way coordinators of owners of all crime processes. And also, there is no enforceable or binding referral mechanism for trafficking victims in line with standards, particularly with Palermo protection. We are speaking on your law 21 from 2007, and also that the new legislation was established and force structure in 2023, which is now led by the National Police and the daily leader. National Task Force, is it established? Has had any coordination meeting on national level? And what is position of civil society in this process? I would like to remind all of us that over 22 trafficking cases involving 108 victims reported between 2014 and 2025. But they are lost somewhere in processes, including the statute of limitation. It is concern when you have this period of 11 years, that you have cases open, maintained by courts, and on the end, some of them closed because of statute of limitation. It is bad message for victims, but at the same time, good message for traffickers. What is plan of state to establish integrated case screening system when we are speaking on trafficking, and that you have all in one way, in one system, to able to get a full picture of that. And I know that you answered yesterday on my question related to migrants born abroad, children, and that statistics which you showed, it is very, very positive that there is increasing number of registered children born abroad, what means that there are several circumstances can improve that. But at the same time, that stigmatization of a mother's child process which is going to have such registration, a lack of interagency coordination remains weak, and administrative barriers are still present. They have not been removed, and definitely it is important to see what is planned to improve that process. Because they are citizens of your country. If mother citizens, logically, you must take care on future of those children. And I would like to conclude with a question. There is no doubt that states always must do something what I'm calling LIP legislation, institutions, strengthening institutional capacities and procedures. Indonesia has established legislation, but implementation of legislation always show gaps and needs to improve that. And when we are speaking on Law 18/2017, there is no doubt that some elements show needs to take action to revise this legislation and harmonize with international standards, and it will be should be taken in consideration. Also, how do you plan to, when we are speaking on institutions, beside of that question of lack of coordination among institutions, and not only between those responsible on state level, but also horizontal from state level to local administration. What is your plan really to reduce that unethical and inaccessible recruitment of migrant workers, and to reduce involvement of private actors? I will stop here. Thank you once again for very constructive dialogue. It has been my pleasure to be rapporteur for your state, and I learned a lot from your report, but also from this dialogue.
Thank you very much, Madam Zemmour. I now give the floor to the member of the committee for additional questions, but dear colleague, if you can be precise in your questions, because we don't have enough time. I start with Babacar, Mr. Babacar, followed by Edgar Corso Sosa, then Pablo Seriani, and Mr. Sharif, and our colleague Omaria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, in turn, would like to thank the delegation for their answers provided. And like my colleague, Mr. Kariwasam, I want to express my solidarity for the painful events that we've seen happening in Indonesia. I would like to refer to a number of questions. The general answer that I've sensed is that the delegation has been preparing in advance to try to prepare its legal arsenal to be in line with the recommendations. I think that the ratification of such instruments would encourage and bolster the legal arsenal. I referred to 3 groups of conventions that are particularly important because of the socioeconomic situation of Indonesia. And in reference to Labour Inspectorate, I had an answer about statistics, the number of labour inspectors and the geographical distribution. But generally, the convention that has been ratified by Indonesia refers to the need to have financial independence, because labour inspectorates are called upon to protect all employees, including migrant workers. I didn't hear an answer regarding the specific status vis-à-vis labour inspectors. I also had asked a question about Convention 189 on protection for domestic workers and Convention 190 on harassment. These conventions focus on the same population group, and in my remarks yesterday I said that in Indonesia, migration of Indonesians tends to be female migration, and therefore these conventions would be particularly relevant to ratify and implement. Obviously, I hail the efforts that have been made by Indonesia, but I believe that ratifying these two instruments, I firmly believe, would help to catalyse efforts that are being made to help uphold and respect the content. This morning, during one of the comments, because I also suggested ratifying the Convention on Social Security and Protection at Work. And this morning, when I was listening to one of the members of the delegation, I heard you say that Indonesia already has bilateral agreements, visa agreements with 11 countries in the sub-region. My question was really in connection with the transportability, or how rights can be transferred between one country and another, where Indonesian migrants are working. I didn't hear anything about Indonesia's intentions as to whether they would be establishing a framework for promoting health at work, because that would help to provide better protection for Indonesian migrants. That brings me to the end of my questions. I hope that was brief enough for you. Mr. Edgar Koso Sosa, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to thank you for all the information provided thus far. It's been well organised, valuable, and has helped us a great deal in fulfilling our mandate for international monitoring. I have a few questions and comments. First, allow me to refer to another two human rights committees within the treaty body system. Of course, we're looking at human rights in a cross-cutting way. So often we agree with what another committee says. There's some overlap sometimes, and that's part of our joint work as a treaty body system. And here I'm referring to the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights and the Human Rights Committee that governs the International Covenant Civil and Political Rights. Now, these are two committees that you came before last year. In March of 2024, Indonesia came before these two committees. I regret that it was such a short time, because I know that they were 1 week after the other, and I know it's not easy to prepare a report and a dialogue when you've got two committees that are practically on top of each other. We have proposed periodic review of obligations to help states to comply with recommendations, and I hope that we'll be able to alternate the timing more effectively. In any case, what was said, and I agree with them, was that both committees referred to non-discrimination. What they highlighted, and I believe it's worth thinking carefully about this, is that it would be important for there to be a comprehensive law for combating discrimination. I think this would really help to bolster the efforts that are being undertaken and help to give effect to the recommendations from those two committees and then our committee too. Now, you already responded on a number of laws that deal with discrimination in some aspects, but I think a specific law would be an excellent move. The Human Rights Committee also referred to the need to have some data on reports for discrimination brought before the NHRI and the courts. What is the situation vis-à-vis these acts of discrimination? What is the state's response? That would be one issue. And another issue that both committees agree about, and now our committee in addition agrees on, relates to refugees and asylum seekers. Previously, my colleague Prasad mentioned what's happening with Rohingya refugees. I think specifically this was raised by these two committees, and we're mentioning also the concern as to access to employment, education, and barriers for getting health care. Furthermore, in keeping with the Human Rights Committee, there are reports of hate speech, xenophobia, and racist speech that are targeted, that target these this population group and Rohingya refugees that are living in camps around the Aceh region. I think this concern relates specifically to these people who are seeking shelter and they are subjected to discrimination. I'm going to refer to another one of the committees on an issue that I think is important. The Human Rights Committee indicated a point connected to the NHRI. You said that people with people with disability, or a person with disabilities who is part of the NHRI, who's no longer part of the NHRI because of personal issues. But the Human Rights Committee said that having a status in 2022, the committee, the accreditation committee, said that the selection process and the replacement of members of KompasHam needs to be stable and uniform, not just joining the NHRI, but also the appointment and replacement of members. This is important for us. I'm wondering if you are considering that specific recommendation from GANRI on the Human Rights Institution. Now, let me also turn to an important issue, which is climate change. I don't think we could leave this very productive discussion without mentioning climate change and its many consequences. The Human Rights Committee, for example, is concerned at the passing of Omnibus Law 11/2020 because of the simplification of environmental indicators, and it also regrets that the complaint brought before the NHRI KompasHam in 2022 from a young group of Indonesians in which they complained that the government was shirking its responsibilities for mitigating climate change. So this is reference to oversight, to a lack of oversight by the government. Now, of course, climate change is important to the Human Rights Committee, and there is a report from 2022 where climate change and migration and the environment are all interconnected. So it's of great importance that you tell us what the government is doing vis-à-vis climate change, and in particular to ensure that this does not affect individuals and migrants and people who we might define as climate migrants. Indonesia, of course, is only too well aware of the impact of climate change with floods, landslides, the rising sea levels and so on. Please, the chair interrupts to ask if the speaker could conclude. 1 minute more, Madam Chair, and I will finish. So that's important for us, and I'm also sorry to see what's happening with the flooding in Sumatra, with many, many having lost their lives. I must also respond to the answer about ratification of Articles 76 and 77 of our Convention, the optional protocol for individual communications. Now, it's good to have national institutions, and the NHRI, the National Commission Against Violence Against Women and for Protection of Children and with Disabilities, as well as complaints before the Ministry for Human Rights. But nevertheless, I would invite you to think about your position, because although those entities exist nationally, sometimes national interests are not always in step with the international arena. So I think that it's worth reflecting on your position so that you can see that on an international level, it's helpful to have a complementary entity to what exists currently. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much indeed to Mr. Corso Sosa. Mr. Seriani, please. Thank you, and a very good morning to one and all. I'd like to echo my colleagues' thanks to the Indonesian delegation for all of the information provided. Firstly, I'd like to ask about the implementation of the Presidential Regulation 125 of 2016, which regulates the reception of asylum seekers and refugees. Article 9 talks about the transfer of these people to detention centres, and then 24, a possible subsequent transfer to shelters. They wouldn't be detention centres. I would like to know a little bit more about the implementation of those articles and any specific information as to whether the people go to detention centres, how many do, how long are they there for, and what conditions are they held, and how many people are effectively transferred to shelters and have access to the various programmes under Article 24, 25 of that regulation. And then I have a set of questions related to migration. I'd like to know about the initiatives to bring the Law 2011 into line with the Convention. What is the state of play there? What expectations do you have about this initiative? Because, as mentioned yesterday, some years ago, the committee recommended to align that with the Convention to repeal all of the clauses that criminalise the entry and irregular stay, and also imprisonment sentences of up to 10 years when it comes to expulsion proceedings. The other points on irregular migration are the following. I understand that in November a new cooperation agreement was signed with Australia. This is a framework convention on security, and I'd like to know what the implications are in terms of migration, in terms of maritime cooperation as well. I understand that this is linked to trafficking and smuggling, but what other information can you give us as regards to the management of irregular migration in maritime areas? We had a dialogue yesterday with Mauritania about this, and our concern for many years now is the involvement in terms of rights and guarantees of certain migration procedures in the global north, the EU, North America and Australia. We've noted this with Sri Lanka and other countries in the region. We've talked about the implications of Australian policies, the detentions in Nauru and Papua New Guinea, and other concerns that we have, but also the Special Rapporteur on Migrants and others that have flagged in the recent decade about the serious impact of the Australian policy. So we'd like to have more information about that, please. Also, the initiatives that you are promoting as part of the Bali process in terms of irregular migration. This is a comprehensive policy, apparently, in that regard. I've taken note about irregularization measures and initiatives. I'd like to know a little bit more about the outcomes. Now, I don't know if you have statistics about irregular migration. You mentioned 47% of Indonesians who are irregular. I don't know what expectations you have about the measures that you're adopting and measures that go hand in hand with countries of destination. I've read a great deal about the permanent deportation policies from Indonesia to Malaysia. Even last week, the week before that, there are constantly mass deportations of children, pregnant women. So is there a bilateral initiative with Malaysia? Because what Malaysia is doing to regularize migration, do you have a specific agreement which would have an impact on Malaysia's decision to regularize those people so that they're not constantly exposed to deportation even though they reside and work in Malaysia and might have a different response to a repressive one? And lastly, tied in with the migration statistics for Indonesia, in particular irregular migration and all of the risks involved, how are you linking that reality and the data of that reality with the sustainable development policies so that Indonesians can have, or so that migrants can have access to dignified work and so that migration isn't a need given the situation they face? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sheriff, please. I had a number of questions, but I'll be very brief. I'll just ask one question. Following up on what has occurred in your country, you have my support and sympathy, of course, to you and all of the Indonesian population about as regards the hurricane. Now, once again, it isn't the first time that's been said. I understand that you are concerned and going through a difficult situation. My condolences to you and the victims. This shows that your country is a victim of climate change, to the extent, if I'm not mistaken, that you have the famous capital well known by all, Jakarta, and this is exposed to climate change because of urbanization, sea level rises. So if I'm not mistaken, over the last summer, your president inaugurated a new capital. I couldn't really be able... Nusantara, I can't really pronounce the name correctly, my apologies. As far as I know, you're the first country in the world that has changed a capital because of climate change. Well, I won't go back to what my colleague Edgar said earlier. I'd like to ask one question. Since COP10 in Mexico, the issue of climate refugees comes up time and time again. But you know that there is no legal status of a migrant, a climate migrant. Now, there are measures to act globally so that these individuals are recognized as victims and have a status. What is your country doing to push forward that topic, to recognize the victims? Because globally, there are about 3 billion people who, in one way or another, are victims of climate change. The World Bank has put forward the figure of almost 3 billion who may be displaced by 2040. So there are a lot of figures out there. So I'd like to ask that question to know what you are doing, because you are very committed globally, and thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Mr. Umaria, please, you have the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would like to express my sympathies and condolences because of the floods that claimed many lives. There is a question that crops up over and over again in the report, in your State Party report and other countries in the region, and that is domestic workers. they are primarily women. There are a lot of issues surrounding exploitation. There are private individuals who renew a contract that's been signed in the country of origin when they arrive in the country of destination, but there's also various types of abuse by employers. And there are difficulties in monitoring all of that. I note that you have set up an oversight system, it's a consular one, for complaints and cooperation with employers. And I very much hope that this system will be assessed. It's all very well and good to have a system, to have a new law, but they need to be evaluated. So perhaps when you submit your next report, the committee will have an assessment so as to ascertain the effectiveness of those measures. I'd also have some questions about the effectiveness of reception centres. You call them protection missions, I believe. So the domestic workers who are complainants are welcomed and hosted there, but for how long? Are they there to process the cases of complaints with employers? Or are they being hosted for a certain period of time whilst all measures are taken and then they can return to their country? So I'd like to have a little bit more of an explanation there. On the Human Rights Commission, Edgar has already mentioned that issue. But the countries in that region have another system, a different human rights system to the universal one. Perhaps there'll be a need for an institutional dialogue to be established. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Umaria, for your additional questions put to the delegation. And the head of delegation, the Director General for Protection, Mr. Mardem Usman, and Madam Savitri. That's a new round of questions for you. And you will have 15 minutes to prepare your answers. And then come back to us to provide your replies. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that in line with the rules of procedure, you have 24 hours to submit written replies to the questions put by committee members, which you haven't been in a position to answer because of a lack of time, or for any other reason, in fact. So you have 15 minutes, and there is a room that you can go to. You'll be brought there so you can organize your questions and come back.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen, members of the delegation, Excellencies, the head of delegation and Director General, we give the floor to the delegation now to answer the questions raised. You will have 20 minutes to answer some questions, and you can also send additional answers in writing. You have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and all the members of the committee. We again appreciate all the questions being put forward, as well as the follow-up to the previous answers that we have given. And I would also like to take this opportunity to again thank you for the words of condolence and support for the natural disasters that struck Indonesia at this point. We really appreciate that, and then our thoughts and prayers, of course, goes to all the victims and members of the families and those affected. Again, in line with that, I think this is also another solid proof of how climate change needs to be very well handled. And in terms of the issues being discussed here and questions regarding climate change, I think it is important to note that the government of Indonesia attaches great importance to climate change and all its negative consequences. In line with that, we also have taken many concrete measures in order to address that, including those related to the migration process. But in the interest of time, Madam Chair, members of the committee, we are trying to look at some of the questions that we will be responding directly, and then some of them which are not yet being answered directly here. And as you suggested, Madam Chair, we will provide the written statements and written submissions on those issues. We are trying to address on the issue of statistics, as well as sanction and penalties being given, issues related to Rohingya refugees in Indonesia, on the issue of one-stop services and the seafarers, as well as stigma, if time allows. We recognize, of course, and acknowledge some of the questions being given. Furthermore, on the challenges, digitalization in the process of promotion and protection of migrant workers, on the election for migrant workers abroad, for Indonesian migrant workers abroad, and questions related to NHRIs, all the details on the irregular migration, and also some immigration issues with regards to Rohingya in some of the centers. Before we submit to that, I would also like to take this opportunity to provide a reference with regards to our previous answers yesterday, that we are referring to Chinese Taipei in terms of the geographical entities, and I would like to take this opportunity to ensure that that particular arrangement is reflected in our reports. Now I would like to give Ms. Alfie the opportunity to provide answers on statistics.
Thank you, Madam Director. I would like to respond to the committee's inquiries on migration data and statistics. Our foundational principle is that integrated data enables integrated protections. This principle is operationalized to two key interconnected platforms. First, the Peduli WNI portal, or Portal for Protecting Indonesian Citizens, launched by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2018, serves as the primary digital channel for Indonesians abroad to report issues and access to consular services. Second, the computerized system for the protection of Indonesian migrant workers, or Cisco P2PMI, functions as the central operational command for the entire migrant worker cycle, from pre-departure to reintegration. These systems are not siloed. They construct a unified digital ecosystems. The Peduli WNI portal is integrated with key national database, including civil registry data from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, passport data from the Director General of Ministry of Immigration, and social security data from the Employment Social Security Agency. Simultaneously, Cisco P2MI works as the operational engine, ensuring these verified data translate into concrete protection measures. This interoperability is designed to close protection gaps through data exchanges. With Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for example, to prevent identity, Ministry of Home Affairs, with Ministry of Home Affairs, for example, to prevent identity fraud and trafficking, it is a critical validation layer for all interconnected systems. With the Employment Social Security Agency, to ensure migrant workers access to social security programs from the pre-placement stage, and as well as with the professional bodies, such as the Indonesian Psychological Association and biometric systems, to strengthen the process. As previously mentioned by Madam Director Indah, we are advancing through the launch of Satu Data Migrasi Indonesia, or One Indonesian Migration Data, or SDMI, a national initiative designed to integrate our migration data architecture and drive evidence-based policy. Led by the Central Bureau for Statistics under the National One Data policy, this initiative marks a strategic shift. SDMI will integrate currently fragmented migration data from all key ministries and agencies into a single standardized statistical repository. It is being developed in alignment with UN statistical standards and GCM Global Compact for Migration's Objective 1. Distinguished members of the committee, we recognize that this is an ongoing journey, while acknowledging the persistent challenges including data fragmentation, the underreporting of irregular migration, and capacity gaps are one of our biggest hurdles. Our strategic response in this instance is to leverage the SDMI initiative as the cornerstone for producing official statistics that monitor our commitment under the Convention, the Global Compact for Migration, and relevant Sustainable Development Goals targets, including 8.8, 10.7, and 16.9. This represents our commitment to transforming operational data into a unified evidence base for both protection and policy. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would like to invite DJ Rinardi to provide answers on sanction or penalties.
Thank you. Yeah, in responding regarding the sanction and penalty for the placement company that we are dealing with all of the migrant workers in Indonesia, we have the sanction mechanism ensure that every violation in the placement and protection of Indonesian migrant workers is follow up. That for make sure. Report can come from the migrant worker itself, the family, or the public, or finding from the supervision. Once a report is received, the Director General assigned the Administrative Sanction Committee to examine the case through document check and verification, clarification, and field visit. The company involved is summoned at least twice, and the process continues even if they don't attend. Violations include administrative failure and serious breaches, such as placing migrant worker without permits, sending worker to banned destination, failing to repatriate worker, withholding right, or misusing the security deposit. Sanctions range from written warning and temporary suspension to administrative fine and full revocation of the permit letter, license. Sanctions only end when the company fulfill all their obligations, including restoring the migrant worker rights. Criminal prosecution still proceed if elements of crime are found. Through direct and indirect supervision, the government took action again until now, at least in 1 year. 9 placement company is already given the sanction. 5 completed their sanction, 2 had their license revoked, and 4 had their deposit disbursed. Law enforcement also processed 13 alleged illegal recruiters. In total, more than 2 billion in Indonesian rupiah migrant worker right was recovered. This shows that enforcement is not symbolic. It restores worker right and deter future violation. Thank you.
We would like now to hear from Mr. Farid on one-stop services and challenges around it.
Thank you, Madam Director. The government of Indonesia continues to strengthen services for prospective and Indonesian migrant workers through an integrated cross-sectoral service approach. In destination countries, protection and administrative services are provided through Indonesian mission, which offer consular services, legal assistance, labor mediation, emergency response, documentation, and temporary shelter. Indonesia cannot establish the one-stop service in abroad due to a diplomatic limitation, but services function are still delivered in integrated manner through embassies and consulates. At the national level, the government is strengthening public services reform through the Public Service Model, or we call MPP. Several LTSA, or one-stop service, functions have been integrated into MPP to ensure that all public services, including migration-related service, and delivered through a modern, efficient, and standardized platform with digitalized system. Through the reinforcement of one-stop services, integration into MPP, optimized services in Indonesian mission abroad, the government ensured that services for Indonesian migrant workers remain accessible, responsive, and well coordinated. Thank you.
I would now like to take the opportunity to provide more answers and clarification on the Rohingya issues. As we have previously mentioned, at this point, on the basis of the data on October 2025 from the UNHCR, the number of the Rohingya refugees in Indonesia is approximately 2,705 people. And we work a lot with international organizations, namely UNHCR and IOM, and the Rohingyas are provided with assistance to ensure the fulfillment of their basic rights. The cooperation, of course, spans among others from registration of refugees to resettlement or repatriation of the refugees, that is under the auspices of UNHCR. With IOM, they covers, among other, the provision of temporary accommodation, food aid, health, education for a number of refugees and assistance in voluntary repatriation. We do notice that there are questions regarding our presidential regulation 125/2016, which provides a framework for the coordinated response of the relevant agencies in Indonesia in managing the refugee arrivals, particularly in emergency situation. That is our guideline, and then we have the National Task Force as well for handling that. We acknowledge that there are some rejection from local communities of the Rohingya refugees due to the long waiting period of the resettlement, and that creates social tension. And as you know, resettlement is not in our hands, but of course in the hands of those countries obliged or willing to receive the refugees. So this task force is working on bridging these differences and ensuring that the process continues, and also to bridge issues between local communities and the refugees. And moreover, we also like to ensure that this issue continue to be addressed, and at some point, I think we will have to provide that in written statements. Now I would like to turn to Mr. Noviandri to provide more answers on seafarers.
Thank you, Madam Director. I would like to use this opportunity to clarify on the issue of protection framework for Indonesian seafarers working on board foreign and domestic fishing vessels, including their position within our broader labor migration system. We fully recognize that seafarers face distinct vulnerabilities due to the nature of their work, such as extended periods at sea, limited communication access, and multi-layered recruitment chains. Their roles may also interact with certain international maritime standards that regulate areas such as training and certification. These contextual factors can heighten risk for them, and for this reason, Indonesia has made it a priority to ensure that seafarers receive full and effective protection. A significant development in this regard was the Constitutional Court's clarification that Indonesian seafarers working overseas fall within the scope of Indonesian workers abroad. This provides an authoritative legal basis for applying the core protections under law number 6/2011 on immigration and law number 39/2024 on the protection of Indonesian migrant workers. Currently, Indonesia is enhancing and refining supporting regulations and administrative arrangements to ensure greater consistency across institutions responsible for labor, fisheries, immigration, and overseas services. This work strengthens the implementation of the protections that seafarers are already entitled to and ensures that procedures function more seamlessly in the field. We have also strengthened our legal and policy framework through anti-trafficking and fisheries legislation, as well as laws and regulations on the protection of migrant workers and seafarers. On the ground, law enforcement bodies and maritime authorities conduct joint operations to combat illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, which is often linked to forced labor and trafficking at sea. Joint labor inspection teams between the ministries have also been established. Relevant authorities investigate allegations, impose sanctions, and revoke licenses where appropriate. In the first half of 2025 itself, 119 cases involving seafarers were referred to the Indonesian National Police. For Indonesian nationals who are victims abroad, we provide shelters, legal aid, rescue and repatriation services, consular assistance, and reintegration support. These measures are reinforced by public awareness campaigns, bilateral, regional, multilateral cooperation, and efforts to improve ethical recruitment. Thank you, Madam Director.
Thank you. And the final response on the questions today will be delivered by DG Rinardi on the issue of stigma.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the last question that regarding the stigma on the woman migrant worker. In Indonesia, children and mothers who return from abroad, especially those who gave birth outside of marriage, often face strong social and cultural stigma. This arises from deeply rooted social norms and religious values that place marriage at the center of family life. As a result, many returning migrant women fear discrimination, rejection, or moral judgment. Even though religious teaching in Indonesia also emphasize compassion, dignity, and the protection of vulnerable individuals. For Indonesian migrant workers, pregnancies abroad can occur in complex and often vulnerable circumstances. Recognizing this, the government of Indonesia, through the ministry and our line vertically in the region, does not approach these cases with stigma, but with a protection-centered and humanitarian framework. The ministry, through the line office in the vertical in the region, provide comprehensive assistance, including counseling and situation assessment, mediation and reconciliation with families to encourage acceptance and support, and continuous accompaniment until a safe solution is reached. When the integration with the family is not immediately possible, the line office vertical in the region coordinate with the local social services to ensure the mother and child receive temporary care, protection, and access to basic services. As part of this commitment about this issue, the government has established new directorate, what we call as Directorate of Reintegration and Family Strengthening, represent a strategic step to ensure that social reintegration. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Chair, we concluded the response from the floor from the delegation of Indonesia on our dialogue, constructive dialogue. And we recognize also the presence of Ambassador Ahsanul Habib here for the closing session together with DG Harniati. The floor is yours, and back to you, Madam Chair.
Madam Director of Human Rights and Migration, Madam Savitri, thank you very much for the elaborated responses that you have provided to the committee. And we look forward, as you said, to the written responses as well. Allow me now to give back the floor to the country reporters for maybe some concluding remark on this constructive dialogue that we have been carrying since yesterday. Mr. Kariawasam, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Allow me to thank the ambassador and the delegation of from Indonesia, from wide range of competencies, and your presence gave us encouragement with regard to how best to implement the convention regime. And we had a very important constructive dialogue. And Indonesia is a very important country for this regime. In fact, the largest country in our parties to this convention, population-wise and even the area-wise. So your success will be our success. That's how we will be approaching our concluding observation. And it will not be a censure of what you do, it will be an encouragement for you to do better. And that's the spirit at which you will be arriving at concluding observations to help you do better so that you become a model for the rest of the parties to this convention as well to the extent possible. But I have a little appeal to make to your delegation, because Indonesia is a very important country in the world, that with regard to the convention, our ratification still remains below par, and we don't have many migrant receiving countries. So the efforts by state parties should continue to broaden this convention and use the mechanisms like the UPR to encourage countries to become partners of the convention, which will make the implementation of the convention better. So in that regard, Indonesia has a big role to play. With that, we wish you a very happy return, and thank you very much for coming here and for all your questions. We look forward to written responses as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rapporteur, for this concluding remark. Madam Zemmour, you have the floor.
I also would like to thank delegation on all the efforts to provide us with information, very constructive dialogue, very nice atmosphere, and everything what have been said during dialogue. It's our intention to improve implementation of convention in Indonesia, but also to use as model for other countries. And I'm sure that our recommendations will be good guidelines for your future development of this activity, and that next periodic report will give significant results. I wish you safety home, return to home for those who are traveling, and for those who are staying here in Geneva, to good, successful work. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Zemmour.
Thank you, Ms. Zemmour, co-rapporteur, for your concluding comments. Your Excellency, Ambassador Ashanul Abib, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Indonesia at the UN in Geneva, Head of the Delegation, Director of Human Rights and Migration Issues, Ms. Inda Nuria Savitri, as well as the members of the delegation and members of the committee. This brings us to the end of the dialogue and the review of Indonesia. I'd like to thank the delegation for their high-quality responses. And before we conclude, I would like to give the floor to the head of delegation for some concluding remarks. Your Excellency.
Thank you so much, and merci beaucoup, Madam Chair. Allow me to extend our profound appreciation for your highly effective chairmanship of our discussion over the past 2 days. And at the outset, I wish also to convey our sincere gratitude to the members of the committee for their consistently constructive engagement throughout this dialogue. We value greatly the committee's notably rigorous, thoughtful, and cooperative approach to its engagement with states. We fully recognize that the review of treaty implementation does not constitute a judicial proceeding, but rather serve as a forum through which UN experts and states may jointly examine and enhance the means of implementing the treaty at the national level. We acknowledge that the time constraint inherent in this session did not allow us to address all questions raised by the committee. This, however, in no way diminishes our firm and unwavering commitment to uphold, respect, and protect the rights of our migrant workers. Migrant workers represent one of the most essential pillars of our nations, and we remain steadfast in our commitment to their empowerment, protection, and well-being wherever they may be. We will provide comprehensive written response to those questions that we were unable to address during the course of this dialogue. With this remark, I should now like to yield the floor to Mrs. Harniati, Acting DG for Human Rights Instruments and Strengthening within the Ministry of Human Rights, to deliver her closing statement. Madam Harniati, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Finally, we are on the closing statement of this constructive dialogue. Madam Chair, distinguished members of the community, on behalf of the delegation of the Republic of Indonesia, comprising 15 delegates from Jakarta representing the relevant minister and 5 delegates from our mission in Geneva, I wish to express our profound appreciation for this opportunity to engage in deep, constructive, and fruitful dialogue. The question, observation, and recommendation provided by the committee members have been beneficial. This exchange has not only allowed us to showcase Indonesians' comprehensive efforts while acknowledging challenges, but has also provided us with a clearer roadmap for the work that lies ahead. We will leave Geneva with a renewed sense of purpose and deeper understanding of our obligation under the Convention. The issue arises from enhancing the protection of our migrant workers in the informal sectors and strengthening our pre-departure training programs, to improving data collection and ensuring stricter regulation of private recruitment agencies have been duly noted. Indonesians' commitments to protection of the rights of all migrant workers and their families is unwavering. It is commitment rooted in our Constitution, driven by our national development goals, and most importantly, reminded by our people. We fully recognize the immense socio-economic contribution they make both to destination countries and to the development of our own nation. Their welfare, dignity, and rights remains our highest priority. However, Madam Chair, distinguished member, we cannot walk this path alone. The protection of migrant workers is a shared responsibility between countries and of origin, transit, and destination. We therefore reiterate our call for enhanced international cooperation, for more countries to ratify this crucial convention, and for collective effort to address the root causes of migration, such as poverty and inequality. We also urge our partners in destination countries to work with us in ensuring fair and ethical recruitment, decent worker condition, access to justice for all migrant workers. It is our hope that members of the committee could also help us encourage our countries to ratify the International Convention on the Rights of Migrant Workers and their families. Like every country, Indonesia faces ongoing challenges in implementing Human Rights Convention. In this case, challenges for Indonesia included those related to data centralization and integration, institutional coordination, as well as capacity building. We are committed to continuing this work and translating the account of our review along with your feedback into concrete action, including through our interministerial team. It is our fervent hope that This effort will contribute to the further refinement of national strategies for the protection of migrant workers. And as mentioned by several committee members, we will, of course, continue to work closely with all relevant stakeholders, such as our national human rights institution, whose some representatives are present here today, as well as civil society organizations, whose contribution have been invaluable to our shared efforts in implementing the convention. In closing, we wish to once again thank you, Madam Chair, and all the distinguished members of the committee for your rigorous engagement and your dedication. My delegation extends its gratitude to the Secretariat for the excellent support provided. You have our sincere assurance that recommendations deriving from this session will receive the highest consideration by our government. We look forward to continuing this constructive partnership and reporting back to you on our progress. Thank you very much.
Excellence, Monsieur.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Ashanul Habib and Ms. Anati, I would like to thank you for your concluding remarks. And on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank Your Excellency, Ambassador Habib, and Joint Permanent Representative of Indonesia to the United Office at Geneva, Head of Delegation. Also, I'd like to thank Ms. Inda Nuria Savitri, Director of Human Rights and Migration Issues, as well as the Director General and all of the delegation for the constructive answers and conversation that's helped us to better understand the situation of migrant workers living in Indonesia, as well as Indonesian nationals who work abroad. On behalf of all members of the committee, I would like to convey my congratulations to, and that of the committee, to the State Party for this excellent constructive dialogue, and we would encourage you to take all necessary measures to implement recommendations. On a personal note, I'd like to present my condolences to the Indonesian population in the face of the tragic events connected to climate change. We wish you all the best as you return to the country, and we look forward to your next review. This brings this morning's meeting to an end, and I'd like to thank the interpreters for the additional time. I would ask the delegation to please remain for a family photo. Thank you.
Picture specialist. Le spécialiste.